Isn't the baby adorable?
Yeah, looks just like you.
Excuse me?
My sister, Jessica, has always been quite the looker in our hometown. She played sports and was always the tomboyish type, running around the playground with the boys, sporting a short haircut. Compared to me, she had fair skin and was delicate, looking lovely in a white summer dress. That's why every boyfriend I ever brought home during my school days ended up having a crush on Jessica. It wasn't Jessica's fault, it was mine for not being captivating enough. While it got me down, it also pushed me to better myself. Finally, when I managed to marry, my husband, George, didn't really give any special reactions upon seeing Jessica. That's why I believed he was different. I thought I could trust him. But betraying me? Unforgivable. Furious, my actions led to both of them losing everything, plummeting into a world of misery. My name is Natalie, 33 years old. I married George, who's 2 years older, 3 years ago, and we've been living together since. Growing up, my dream was to become a homemaker once I got married. However, after graduating from college, I joined a company where I was surrounded by supportive bosses, kind seniors, and cute juniors. The environment was so welcoming and the job was rewarding, so even after marriage, I've been working full-time. George was very supportive of me working, saying, "Let's both do the house chores whenever we can." He was very cooperative at the beginning of our marriage. At least, he was at the beginning. George had always lived with his parents before our marriage. He had never lived alone, so he basically had zero housekeeping skills. He'd knock over the trash can when vacuuming, put too much detergent in the washing machine, and broke more dishes than he cleaned. And cooking? His knife skills were so bad that it was painful to watch. At first, I would teach him where we do chores together. But because I also had my job, things would take longer when he did them, so I often ended up doing them myself. Every time, George would give me an apologetic look and say, "I'm sorry, thanks." But at some point, that became the norm. Cleaning, laundry, dishwashing, cooking, they all became my tasks, and all George did was take out the trash. And even then, I was the one tying up the garbage bags. I too have a full-time job, and sometimes I'm too swamped to handle all the chores. But whenever I'd ask George for help, he'd make a face. "It's faster if you do it. But you could at least help with the laundry, right?" I'd retort. Today, like every other day after a full day of work, I returned home to find George lounging on the sofa, watching TV. Our work hours aren't much different, but George's workplace is closer to our house, so he usually gets home first. The laundry I did in the morning was still in the dryer, and the dishes from breakfast were still in the sink. I hadn't had the time to do the dishes before leaving for work, and George didn't seem to have noticed. I started by cleaning up the dishes and then preparing dinner. All the while, George just watched TV. So when I asked him to help with the laundry, he seemed hesitant. "It's just folding the laundry," I said. "He just can't do that simple thing. Or rather, he probably doesn't want to do it because it's a hassle." He replied, "Well, I don't know how you like things folded. It doesn't matter. As long as they fit in the dresser. I don't really have a preference. Well, work was super busy today, and I'm really tired. Usually, I'd be okay, but today's just not the day." "It's fine, I'll do it." "Yeah. It's probably faster that way." Saying that, he went back to watching TV. I'm tired too from my job. Moreover, George doesn't even say I'm sorry or thank you anymore. What happened to our initial agreement to divide the household chores evenly? Even if the burden has become heavier on me, is it too much to ask for a simple thank you? I sighed softly, continuing to prepare dinner without emotion. It seems like George's attitude is getting worse day by day. It's now given that he doesn't do chores, and he's increasingly going out alone on his days off. "Don't you think we should spend some quality time together, just the two of us?" I'd suggest. But his responses were always along the lines of, "I've got golf with my boss that day." Or, "A colleague wants some advice about work. So I need to go." He always seems to have some plans. At 35, George, with no particular high-ranking position, honestly, doesn't earn a great salary. I once accidentally saw his paycheck, and it was much lower than mine. But the fact that he's often invited out by his superiors and colleagues probably means he's well-liked at work. I know very well that connections and relationships are crucial in one's career. So when he cites that as a reason, it's hard to ask him to prioritize me. I also didn't have the courage to quit my job and become a full-time housewife. Before we knew it, 3 years had passed since our wedding. I've always wanted to start a family soon after getting married. My feelings haven't changed, and I've brought up the idea of having children with George several times. However, he always said he wanted to cherish our time together more and wasn't very keen on the idea of starting a family just yet. While I understood and respected his sentiments, it hurt that he'd spend his free days away from me. I tried approaching the topic again, wanting a child sooner rather than later, but George gave vague and non-committal responses. I started to wonder if he's not really fond of kids. The thought made me feel down. At times like this, a change of scenery helps. Thinking of maybe catching a movie, a message notification from Jessica, my older sister by 2 years, popped up. She wanted to meet and chat. Meeting her after so long seemed refreshing, so I quickly agreed, and we decided to meet up at a diner near the station the next day. Jessica arrived a bit later than planned, apologizing as she took the seat opposite me. "It's been a while. How've you been?" "I'm good, how about you?" "I'm doing well too." With a smile, Jessica said. "Sorry for calling you out so suddenly." "It's okay. I'm happy to see you after so long." "There's something I wanted to tell you, Natalie." "What is it?" "I'm pregnant." "What?" I exclaimed louder than I intended, remembering only after that we were in a public place. I quickly covered my mouth with both hands. Seeing my reaction, Jessica laughed. "You're too surprised." "But, Jess, I didn't even know you had a boyfriend." I mumbled. With a slightly troubled look, Jessica replied. "Actually, we're not married yet." "What?" "He's got some complications." Jessica looked down with a saddened expression. Jessica had always been the beauty of our hometown, famous enough to be recognized by many. As a kid, she was the active type, playing sports and running around with the boys in the park. Compared to me, she was fair-skinned and delicate, looking like a girl who'd look pretty in a white dress. Now, she hops between various temporary jobs. She'd always joke about not wanting to be a permanent employee because office romances always messed up her relationships. Maybe that was the issue here. "You're happy about the baby, right?" I hesitated before asking. Jessica smiled, nodding. "Of course." Whatever the situation, it seemed she'd made up her mind to be a single mom. "Natalie, will you support me?" No matter the circumstances, if Jessica wants that child, there's only one thing to say. "Of course, congratulations." With that said and a smile, Jessica gave a relieved grin. "It'd be great if you, Natalie, could have a baby soon too." I couldn't bring myself to tell the blissful Jessica that I was currently having doubts about that very matter. I just gave a vague smile and responded, "Yeah, maybe." That day, as soon as I got home, I told George about Jessica. "My sister, she's pregnant." "Wow, really?" "Guess we'll have to bring a gift when the baby's born." I had intended to share the news as something significant, but George's reaction was much more indifferent than I expected. Even though George knew Jessica wasn't married yet, he didn't seem to show any interest or ask any questions. Or maybe he just isn't interested in kids? I couldn't consult with Jessica, and my feelings of unease only grew. Time passed, and I received a message from Jessica saying she had safely given birth. When I told George, all he said was a simple "Oh, really?" Maybe if he actually sees the baby, he might want one of our own. With that thought, I suggested visiting Jessica in the hospital. "She's going to be in the hospital for a while, and I really want to see the baby's face soon, plus we should bring a baby gift." "All right, I'm free this Saturday. I can come." "Really? I'll let Jessica know." And with Jessica's approval, George and I planned to visit her with a baby gift the following Saturday. The next day, wondering what would make a good baby gift, I tried to search on my phone, but the battery had just died. I had left my computer at work, so I had no choice but to use George's. Heading into the bedroom where it was, I thought about letting George know, but he seemed to be napping on the couch while watching TV. It's just a quick search, I thought, and continued to the bedroom. Upon starting up the computer, something astonishing caught my eye. Maybe it was set to start automatically, but without me touching anything, an email folder was open. And it contained a recent conversation. All with Jessica. What? Why? It made sense that George, being my sister's brother-in-law, would have some interactions with Jessica. They probably communicated sometimes, but what could they be discussing this frequently? Curious, I clicked on the most recent conversation. Congratulations on the birth. I'm really sorry I couldn't be there. So I'm finally a dad, huh? Thank you. It came out easier than I thought. Can't wait to introduce him to his father. What is this? It was unbelievable. I couldn't understand. He apologized for not being able to be there. Is he the father? This implied that the child Jessica gave birth to might be George's. In a frenzy, I looked through their past emails. What did you tell her today? That's just mean. This was from the day Jessica told me about her pregnancy. I'm pregnant. Probably from the last time we met. I'm super thrilled. And this seemed to be from when Jessica found out about the pregnancy. I'll be over there today. Told Natalie I'm playing golf with my boss. Okay, wanna try that restaurant we talked about? The further back I went, the more it looked like a conversation that couldn't possibly be between a sister's husband and her brother-in-law. It seemed their relationship started right after George and I got married. I felt a mixture of anger and despair as my hands trembled. I can't believe it. Trying hard to shake my shocked brain, I think about what needs to be done next. Then, I made sure to put George's computer back the way it was so he wouldn't find out I touched it. When I returned to the living room, George was soundly snoring, asleep without a care in the world. I clenched my fist tightly. I'll never forgive you, I whispered quietly, formulating a plan. Then on Saturday, George and I went to the hospital where Jessica was admitted. Jessica seemed quite well. You didn't expect him to be out and about so soon. I wanted to say, but trying to put on a smile even though I'm a bit annoyed. On Jessica's arm, a newborn baby slept peacefully. The baby was innocent. That's why, even in its cuteness, I shot George a scornful look. I could feel my blood boil as George looked at the baby with joy. The baby is so cute, George murmured affectionately. Yeah, looks just like you, I replied. George and Jessica froze. I smirked with a sly grin. Then, seeing their reaction to my words, both of their faces drained of color. You thought I didn't know? Jessica played dumb, tilting her head and asking. What are you talking about? That you two are having an affair. And who the real father of this baby is. George raised his voice. What the hell are you saying? Jessica just gave birth. Don't make wild accusations. It's not an accusation. I have all the evidence, I said, handing George an envelope as if throwing it at him. Surprised, he took it and checked the contents. It contained excerpts from emails between him and Jessica, hinting at their relationship. I copied the data from George's computer to mine and read everything. You went through my computer? He shouted. I wanted to see what gift to give Jessica. There wasn't even a password, and your email app popped right up, I said. Upon hearing about George's careless security, Jessica clicked her tongue in disbelief. According to the emails, it all began when George came to my family's house to announce our marriage plans. Of course, he met Jessica there and fell head over heels for her. But George, being on the brink of marrying me, couldn't do anything about his feelings. So, he went ahead and married me, but his feelings for Jessica never faded. Surprisingly, Jessica later joined George's company as a temp worker. Though she was only there for 6 months, it was more than enough time for their relationship to deepen. He'd make excuses like, I have a golf game with my boss. Or, a coworker needs work advice and I need to go. But in reality, he was meeting Jessica. Eventually, they crossed a line. I didn't want to, Jessica said. But George forced me. As I summarized what I learned from the emails, Jessica's face turned into that of a victim. But the child is innocent, so I decided to keep it, she added. Why are you making things up? Wasn't it you who seduced me? George shouted. It's not like that. Right, Natalie? You believe me, don't you? Jessica looked at me desperately. I replied flatly. Why would I? In our college days, I often consulted with Jessica about my relationships. Every time I got a boyfriend, Jessica was genuinely happy for me, but they never lasted long. That's because whenever I introduced a boyfriend to Jessica, he'd inevitably fall for her. I fell for Jessica, so having someone tell me up front that they wanted to break up with me because of her was one of the better scenarios. There were even those who tried to get close to Jessica by using me as a stepping stone. Each time that happened, Jessica would look apologetically at me, but it wasn't her fault. It made me wonder if I lacked charm or if I needed to make others fall for me so much that they wouldn't be tempted by Jessica. That's when I met George. Even after George met Jessica, all he said was, "She's a pretty lady." His attitude towards me didn't change at all. That's why I married George. I thought he'd only have eyes for me and wouldn't be swayed by Jessica. But the reality was, he just hadn't encountered Jessica until we were too deep into the relationship, so we ended up getting married. It's like nothing had changed since our college days. Actually, back in college, I could trust in Jessica's kindness, so I might have been happier then.
You purposefully stole my boyfriends, didn't you? No, I didn't. It's all here.
I showed her the printed out copies of their email exchanges. I've always stolen Natalie's boyfriends.
That's such a nasty habit.
Then Natalie comes to me for relationship advice. Comforting her really boosts my ego, I can't stop. That was the truth. Jessica would steal my boyfriends on purpose and comfort me when I was down, all to boost her self-esteem. I thought she was a supportive big sister. I believed she was a kind sister I could share highs and lows with. And then I handed George the lawyer's business card.
Hold on.
I expect the division of property. Jessica, I've told everything to our parents. They're going to disown you.
Wait a minute. They won't see their grandchild then. Even if Natalie and George break up, who's gonna want a plain divorcee like you?
They both prioritize me. They told me not to worry. Seems they don't want to see the face of their disgraceful daughter more than their grandchild's right now. Jessica gritted her teeth at my words. Then she turned to George.
Hey, you're the father of this child. You'll pay child support, right? That was the deal from the beginning.
George remained silent. Given his modest salary, he couldn't possibly afford to divide the property with me and also child support. He probably thought he wouldn't get caught and was relying on my salary for living expenses. But now, with the double punch of the division and child support, he was in a tight spot. No wonder he stays silent. From now on, we'll communicate through our lawyers.
This is ridiculous.
As I tried to leave, George began tearing up the printed emails. Of course, I still had the data on my computer and had already provided it as evidence to my lawyer. They're probably verifying the authenticity of those emails right now. But judging by their reactions, it doesn't seem like it's some kind of fake email or scam. I eventually divorced George and moved back to my parents. Seeing me, both of them were in tears. For them, Jessica was their beloved daughter as well. And of course, she was a sister I loved dearly. I never thought she'd play me like that. My parents disowned Jessica. She tried to rely on them using her child as leverage, but they never gave in. It seems like Jessica and George didn't end up together. When I caught them, Jessica tried to shift all the blame on George, and he couldn't accept that. In the end, Jessica couldn't raise the baby alone and had to place it in a temporary care facility. Rumors circulated at the office that George was having an affair with Jessica, his wife's sister. Feeling uncomfortable, he reportedly resigned from his position. He's tried to reconcile a few times, saying he's sorry, but there's no way I would accept it. I had to get a restraining order through the police. Now, I won't have to see George's face ever again. Meanwhile, I've become even more dedicated to my job than before. People were quite concerned about me at first, but I seem to have gotten over it and have been working hard. Looking at me, it seems the morale in the office has also improved, and sales have apparently skyrocketed. I think I've had enough of marriage, but it's not the only thing that brings happiness. I have a rewarding job, a trustworthy boss, dependable colleagues, and loving parents. Right now, I feel more than fulfilled. I hope the days continue to be this calm and peaceful.